Ladies and gentlemen, it's a real pleasure to get to talk to our guest artist who's going to be with us soon with Fuoco Obbligato. And so, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about that name?
So in the lyric repertoire, it would mean joining an instrumental voice to the solo vocal voice. And so we have kind of a duet going on in the context of a Baroque aria, for example. And it's always nicely complementary because either the instrument is sort of copying the voice, sometimes there are echo effects, sometimes it's expressing something that the singer doesn't dare to express, maybe an undercurrent of either anger, frustration, or sadness, or joy, depending on. So either they run in parallel or they sometimes run a little bit in counterpoint fashion on an emotional level. And it's really interesting. I think it kind of gives that light and dark shading to the music. And I think the Baroque composers used it as a dramatic effect, actually.
Well, they sure did. I was fascinated with this is a return visit for your group because we loved you
Yeah.
so much before.
Oh,
I was so impressed with your programming.
thank you.
How do you go about selecting what you're going to perform for us?
Well, I have to admit that often the obbligato arias in a long Baroque opera are the most beautiful moment. So I feel like I'm stringing together pearls so to make a beautiful necklace. And so what I try to do is fashion a program in sort of a linear way that kind of tells a story. And with this particular program that I'm coming with, the Labyrinth of Love, I love the analogy of a labyrinth, which is ready, describes a kind of potentially like taking a walk through a labyrinth. So we're on a promenade kind of, and in a labyrinth you never know what's coming up next. There are surprises. And actually what I did is I took this orchestral suite by Johann Joseph Fuchs, contemporary of Handel's, and I'm sort of punctuating the program with those dance movements, and they function as kind of the hedges of the labyrinth. So they kind of guide us through. And each part in between has a different kind of well, we start actually with two arias by French composers, Campra and Rameau, and they're either sung by the goddess of love or addressed to the goddess of love. So we're in kind of a good place at the beginning of this labyrinth, and it's actually kind of the beginning of a 24-hour kind of passage through the labyrinth, because we start with day and we move through kind of a Baroque storm scene, and we have clouds building up, then the sky's clear, and we have a beautiful aria by Vivaldi called Sovente il Sole, which is actually Perseus singing about the storm that has cleared, and the fact that we can appreciate calm seas and sunshine only when we've also experienced clouds and stormy seas. And it's a beautiful aria, and it's followed right away by an aria by Handel from Apollo's Daphne, and she actually invokes the Neptune, the goddess of the sea, to help save her from Apollo's pursuit. And then we sort of move actually even into sort of a nighttime scene with a dance movement called Le Rossignol, which is the nightingale. And then we have a little jewel by an unknown composer. He was Handel's assistant, John Christopher Smith, originally Johann Christoph Schmidt, I think. And he actually wrote an entire opera called The Fairies, and I lifted an aria out of that called Sweetest of Birds. And sorry, no, I'm confusing. There are two arias. One is called oh shoot,
The Sweetest of Birds.
Yes, definitely that's one. And the other one is from Midsummer Night's Dream. And I think it's actually just called a fairy is kind of conjuring, wants to protect.
You spotted
snakes.
Snake.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's
what a
the
great
beginning of the
title.
text.
It
Exactly.
reminds
So
me of Handel's Frogs. Yes.
Exactly, exactly.
Mhm.
So those are our nighttime arias, and they're very quite, entertaining because they're quite graphic. You kind of hear the slithering snakes, and you feel the spiders, and then you have the beautiful song of the nightingale, which of course is an obbligato aria for
Yeah.
flute, as you can
Yeah.
well imagine.
Yeah.
So
Well, your
yeah, we've
program
got.
is so creative and
Thank
so
you.
interesting. And I have to I have to admit that I like the fashion that I have studied so many composers and you
Yeah.
can't throw me on composers. And I have to admit that when I got your program, I had to look up John Christopher Smith.
Well,
I had never heard of him.
but honestly, in my also quite long career now as a violinist, I had not either heard of him. And I think it's obviously because, he was the assistant, but he apparently also took care of Handel's estate after his death. And really, he
Hmm,
was a very fine composer in his own
interesting.
right. So, and well respected, I
Interesting.
think, at the time. And then
Fascinating.
towards the end of the program, we of course get to Bach, and has a special
Sure.
place in your festival and
Sure.
and in my heart and in my personal history. And we're sort of moving towards a pastoral ending after the nighttime labyrinth moment, and we are singing that beautiful aria from the cantata 208,
Hmm.
called The Hunt. And actually, as you know, Bach never wrote an opera, but he did write a number of secular cantatas. And
Sure.
this is one of those where he lifted right out of mythology. You have goddess Hunt, Diana, and this particular aria, when sheep safely graze, is sung by the goddess of the hunt, actually, Pallas.
Mm.
And of course, it has some religious connotations too, and
Sure.
also political connotations.
It's
It
one of
being
my
a
very
birthday cantata,
favorites. Yeah.
isn't it?
Oh,
Yeah.
it's glorious. It never ceases to amaze me of some of these great master composers, and it seems like unbounded creativity. I mean, it just never ceases to amaze me.
Completely, completely. And of course, here you have the pastoral theme. Normally, it's with two flutes, and we're going to do it with flute and violin because
Sure.
you know how in Baroque times they were quite flexible also with their instrumentation. If they didn't
Sure.
happen to have a flutist, well, then someone else jumped
Someone
in.
else did it. I
So that's
remember
going
reading
to
in the Sigmundtag Musicum of Pretorius how he listed, well, if you don't have this, you double this. If you don't have this, you
yeah,
and we have this idea that it was exactly no, I think they
I
were
know.
functional and practical musicians.
They had to be,
Yeah.
especially, they didn't have Xerox machines. They were composing until the day before. I mean, they had to really improvise and
Yeah.
on several occasions, I think. So
But what are
I
the
think
performers you're bringing? I know you're the violinist
I am.
and a very fine one. So did your
Thank
training
you.
was your training in the United States or was it in Germany or was it both or
Actually, it was mostly in the States. I went to Yale University as an undergraduate, and then I went to New England Conservatory. But then for the Baroque lessons, I went to Germany and studied with Reinhard Goebel, who was at the time running a group called Musica Antiqua Cologne.
sure?
They did many recordings, sort of iconic recordings for Deutsche Grammophon at the
Right.
time. And
I have many of them.
yeah,
Yeah.
and he was famous for taking extremely quick tempi, and I think he broke the record for the Brandenburg concertos. But it was basically like jumping into cold water. But I learned, how
Oh,
to swim
sure.
quickly,
Yeah. You'd have to
and
there.
but it was a wonderful experience. And
Well,
since then, I've been, of course, been living in France, so I, played with a lot of Baroque
sure.
ensembles, and I'm lucky to collaborate with one of my best friends, and I'm bringing him as well, and Kenneth Weiss, who is just a magnificent harpsichordist
Wow.
and pedagogue. He was also formerly a professor at Juilliard, and he still teaches at the Paris Conservatory. And he's also a neighbor here in Paris, and we just love playing together.
Oh,
And I
that's
think
wonderful.
yeah, so we're so lucky to come with him. And then we have Jean Brignac, our flutist, who plays with many French ensembles,
Hmm.
and he's a wonderful, wonderful traverso flute player. And a new cellist this time, who happens to be Jean's wife, and she's an English cellist, has been living in France for many, many years as well. And she and Jean have both, they play in our orchestra as well. So when David conducts, we're in the bigger the bigger opera Fuoco formation,
Hmm.
but we're also so happy to be in the smaller and kind of on our
Sure.
own and making
Yeah.
music with our two brilliant singers. So
Yeah, I always think when you're working with friends and making music with friends, that's kind of the best it gets.
it
So
is
good for you.
nothing better.
I loved, like I said, I loved the last program, and this one, I just was blown away as soon as you sent it to us. I was blown away. I went through it and I said, "Well, I get the idea of where she's going because you made a really nice path, but the creativity between these wonderful
Mm,
composers." And
mm.
I don't get to hear Rameau very often. I love
Yeah,
Rameau and Compra. I don't get to hear them very often. And even
true.
Fuchs, I just don't hear him very often. But we tend to have boiled, in my opinion, we've tend to have boiled classical music down to like two
Yeah,
or three people. When
I know.
when there was truly great music with lots of great composers, and we forget to say that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we have like a huge, beautiful fan of repertoire and that we can choose from. But again, a lot of these composers I mean, maybe some of them are less frequently performed because if you get an entire work by Compra, well, you might think,
Yeah,
maybe it's not the greatest masterpiece. But then when you do lift out a few of those
do the
arias,
thing.
they're just magnificent.
Yeah, there's gems in
So,
there. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So I
So
feel like I'm kind of in a gold digging position.
well, there's nothing more fun than programming, and there's nothing more time consuming than programming.
You're
Uh,
so right, John. Yeah,
I,
I
I
do.
I know that you have that. I've got a program I'm doing next fall, just as example, with
Yeah,
our professional vocal group that travels in,
right.
and I'm titling it "Fables, Feathers, and Fins," and
Ooh,
I'm doing the Menotti's Unicorn, Gorgon, Manticore, and then I'm trying to piece together animal works with
fantastic.
that. So anyway,
Well,
I get the mindset of
yeah,
what you're doing, and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yours is so
Yeah.
creative and so
Oh,
beautifully done. It's inspirational on how you put this together. I just
thanks so
I
much.
love it. Just love it.
Thanks so much, John. It really,
Yeah.
that means so much to me.
So
I'm
tell
so
me
happy.
about tell me about I have to ask,
Yes,
how's your father doing? Now, if you don't
thank
know,
you.
her father is the preeminent musicologist Christoph Wolff, who many of our audience may know. He's been here,
Hmm?
oh, 3 or 4 times. He even
Yeah.
conducted a St. Matthew for us. And I just adore him. I learned so much from him. How's he doing?
He's doing really well. Thank you. He's, officially retired, but he's actually extremely active. He's in touch with all the former institutions he worked for, so Harvard, but also the Bach Archive in Leipzig,
Hmm.
and also the CPE Bach edition in Cambridge. And he's always working with his younger colleagues, and most of them are his former students. And and he just enjoys it so much. And I think actually his current his Bach biography is in its going to be in its second edition, coming out with the Norton Publishing
Okay.
House. And actually, because, even in the last 10, 15 years, there have been new discoveries. And
Sure.
anyway, it's up to date now.
I need to get the new
And
one. I need to get the
yeah,
new. Yeah.
exactly. Exactly.
Absolutely. Well, and
So,
will your famous husband be traveling with you too?
yes, he will. He will. And I think as he likes to do, if it's okay with you, he would love to, share a few words
Oh, the
with the
program
audience.
is yours. Yeah, I
Yeah.
just he's always so knowledgeable, and he too comes from musical royalty. You two
Absolutely.
are so accomplished on your own, but you come from great royalty too.
Well,
His father being Isaac Stern. Uh, so I hope he will talk. I learned so much, and he's so eloquent.
I'm sure he will. He's sometimes unstoppable, so we have to make sure.
Uh, that that's the conductor in him, I'm afraid.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that happens.
Well, you know
But
what that feels like.
well, I do kind of. The difference is that we really want to hear from him, and I'm not sure all the people want to hear from me, but he's so brilliant, and I love
Mm.
it when he talks. So tell me, is there anything else I should be telling our audience about this program coming up?
Let me think. No, I think it's I just hope that everyone will just, enjoy this balade, as you would say in French,
Oh yes.
of of sort of just discovering new things, and as in a labyrinth, when surprises, you don't know what's around the corner. I hope there are discoveries. I hope that everybody will enjoy the pieces that are less well known,
I know
because
we will.
there's just so much out there. And
Well,
and I hope,
it fits him beautifully in the festival. The
good,
weekend before is a program of I'm calling it the Age of Enlightenment. It's Beethoven one, Haydn Cello Concerto, and the
that's
Mozart Coronation.
fabulous.
And then immediately after you, you're on a Sunday.
Yep,
Immediately after you is the St. John.
wonderful.
So
Well,
it's in
what could be
it's in a
better?
great place.
I
Yeah.
have to say, actually, speaking of the St. John, no, not true, not St. John. My idea for founding this ensemble that I've called Fuoco Obbligato is when we performed the B minor Mass in Leipzig in
Mm,
2019, because I realized all of a sudden there were so many beautiful obbligato arias in that piece, and I just
uh,
thought, well, why not lift these out of the grand works? And financially, one can't always put on the grand works,
sure.
but these individual movements that are so intimate and such a wonderful conversation between singer and instrumentalist really merit their own platform, kind of. And that's what I'm hoping to create with this program.
You
Um,
don't need to hope, you have.
no,
It's glorious, and I've appreciated your patience with our technological issues we've had going on before this. So,
no worries, no worries. I'm just
well,
delighted to talk to
mhm,
you, John, and I'm so happy to come and see you in person. And
it is
love being
mutual.
on your campus, and it's a wonderful festival you run. So
Please give my
many,
regards to all those of your family that I adore and yourself, and
I
we'll look
will.
forward to seeing you
I
in a few weeks.
same. Great, wonderful. Take
Well,
care, John.
thank you. My
You
pleasure, and you take good
sunny
care.
in sunny weather. Okay,
Okay,
take
safe
care.
travels.
Bye bye.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you.